kid from the bush who grew into a legend in his own lunchtime, former SAS soldier Michael J. Malone has seen it all. This is Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, hosted by the man himself, Mick Malone, along with Toby Malone, as they examine this long, storied career in the Australian Special Forces. Join us each week for behind-the-scenes insight, exclusive readings, and brutally honest truths from a true original. Welcome to Never Die Wondering. Welcome to episode 19 of Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, a podcast that explores the life and legend of Michael John Malone, OAM. My name is Toby Malone, Mick's son and co-host of this podcast series, joined by the man whose name is in the title, Mick Malone. Hi, Dad.
Hey, Toby, how are you, mate?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good.
Good. So we're casting our minds back now, going back to the moment when you'd landed in the bush. Suddenly everything you've been training for has come to pass, and now as you're touring around these new lines with unexploded ordnance all over the shop, I guess it must have really felt like it was real now.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and you knew that the bad guys were out there in the bush, and that soon enough you'd have to go out there and see if you could find them.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
We were just standing by waiting for the first patrol to be given the nod to get ready.
right. Okay, so as you're waiting, you had to get used to life at Nui Dat and what it was like to
Yeah.
be out there with the blokes in the camp.
Yeah.
So lots of good memories of camp life.
Yeah. We had three beds in each tent. We had a PSP or pressed steel plank walkway all the way around the line. So when the wet season, you're not sloshing around in mud.
Hmm.
We had a good shower, um, single shower that everyone used. Uh, the cooks cooked up a storm every day, and we knew that wouldn't last because we had on the rations pretty soon.
Right.
And the boozer had cold beer, and we had a movie theatre,
Right. Okay, so sounds like the legacy camp.
Ockers Opera House.
So it sounds like you're all on holiday a little bit,
Oh,
except
very
except for
much,
the
very
except
much.
for the thing you had to do every few days, go out and get into it.
Ducking and weaving.
Yeah, so that's great. So there's lots of things, and this is a chapter with plenty of photos. So we'll talk about all the photos at the end of the chapter. So if anyone's interested in knowing about the camp looked like, there are lots of photos from your personal collection of life at Nui Dat and what the Australian lines were like. So those are very valuable photos in there, and so we'll talk about those more at the end of this chapter. But why don't we get into the reading and read this chapter? It sounds like a longer chapter, but with all the photos, it's actually not as much text as it sounds like. So today we'll be reading chapter 16 of Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone, OAM, published in 2024 by Imprimatur Books. This chapter, entitled Dat Life, covers pages 127 to 135 in the print edition. The ebook may have slightly different numbering, so follow from the beginning of the chapter. As we read the body of the text we read by author Mick Malone, whenever we come across a footnote, we'll pause in the least disruptive way possible, and I'll read that footnote. And now, without further ado, Two Ranks on the Road.
Chapter 16, Dat Life, 1969. Okay, let's have ya. L Troop lines were along the entrance road on the hillside and the picture theatre. Ocker's Opera House, further on. Ocker Stevenson was a sergeant in one squadron, which was the first squadron to come up to the hill to escape the rubber plantation. Three squadron had originally occupied. Next to Task Force Headquarters, 3 Squadron, Murphy, had a rough time down there, and were mortared around the time of the Battle of Long Tan. Bob Davies lost an eye in this attack, and others were wounded. Juvie Matten was a hero that day, running around with a med kit, attending to the wounded, It was just quite a dangerous spot for a unit to be located, as it was near the water point and the wire that had yet to be established. If the VSA had attacked through the water point, it may have been all over Red Rover. Needless to say, someone in the head shed saw some sense in allowing the next squadron to occupy part of the hill, which was literally in the middle of the task force area. 104 Signal Squadron had a radio relay on the very top. We occupied the saddle. D Company's 5RR were further down the hill, and an artillery battery, possibly 108 battery, was further down again. An engineer unit, 21 Construction Squadron, occupied the very bottom and had all their defence stores. Ocker Stevenson built the picture theatre immediately on arrival and scrounged up all the materials from 21. He designed the building and mapped it out on a piece of paper. They cut steps into the side of the hill with spades enough to prop up chairs millionaire, bring your own plastic chair, in rows, corrugated iron roof, and screen on the other side of the road. It was quite an experience sitting there, seeing a truck or a Land Rover drive past or in the pouring rain. Pages and pages of photos here. When patrols were in camp, which was a fair bit of the time, it was great to get showered after a sweaty day, cool hand lukin, or digging pits. Put the lightweight flying suit on, grab your 50 cal ammo tin, head up the hill for a couple of cold BBs before dinner. The ammo tin held 6 cans with a handful of ice.
Footnote: the ice truck delivered a couple of blocks of ice to every unit every day. They were our heroes.
Yeah. Which is just enough to see you through a three-reel movie and the accompanying LFL game from the week before.
Footnote: the Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings were the favourites.
The SIGs were responsible for the projector and many a time put the reels on us about, causing great jocularity. On one particular night, a couple of us stayed on in the theatre, generally chewing the fat. It was late at night and we were getting pretty rowdy. Someone noticed a large torch heading down our way from headquarters. Shits were trumps, so we grabbed our eskies and chairs and bolted. I made the fatal mistake of diving into the scrub to hide into what looked like lush lantana. But no, it was old concertina barbed wire, and I fell straight into it and I was stuck there. I was stuck there with my flying suit shredded, and it took 4 blokes to retrieve my sorry ass. Big lessons learned.
Footnote: I can't remember whether I was grounded or whether I was banned to the kitchen. Kev Logan to the rescue again with a gallon of mercurochrome.
Let's remember that. Then, of course, was the Diggers Boozer, which was out one place, which was our one place of sanity in a war zone. It was 15 cents a can. Shadows. 15 cents a can of VB, Courage or Ricious on most nights, and then a 5 cent night once a month. The Americans were keen to get their hands on our stronger VB and could offer to trade 3 cartons of Pabst, Schlitz, or Coors for 1 carton of VB. We were ordered to buy military payment certificates, MPC, which came in all sorts of denominations, from 1 cent to $20, a system introduced by the US Army to thwart the black market. There are instances where the odd Viet would hoard MPC, but was caught out on the colour change without warning. The wrong colour meant the $1 million you had collected was suddenly worthless. It didn't worry us much, as we were able to swap the old for the new through our pay office. And Brian, Tiny Ralph, always made sure we were looked after. What a man. Squadron headquarters consisted of the following: Major Ridge, the Beast or Angry Ant, Beasley, OC, Captain Ross Bishop, 2IC, Captain Tony Haley, BEM, Ops Officer, Wotu Des Kennedy, MM, SSM, Corporal Dave Lewis, Orderly Room, and Corporal Brian Ralph, Pay Rep. Leaders of the 152 Signal Squadron Det were Second Lieutenant Peter Fitzpatrick with Sergeant Barry Standen, Troop Sergeant. The SIG Corporals were Gino Jansen and Chris Pennington. The Q-Store staff was led by Wotu Mal Mizu Waters,
Footnote: Misu is Japanese for water.
with Sergeant Rat Smith and Corporal Tom Bradshaw on his second tour with 3 Squadron, and a couple of diggers, John Malcolm and Crick Dimmick. The cooks were Sergeant Tom Bassett, Ted Slattery, and Bob Stanley, while our medic was Kev Logan, who had a Hoochie REP on the track up to J Troop. The troop commanders were Nick Howlett, I Troop, Terry Nolan, J
Foot,
Troop,
Footnote: Terry was Rio to 2 Squadron to replace Sam Simpson, who lost both legs in a booby trap incident in 1968.
uh, and my patrol commander, Chris Roberts, I Troop. Patrol commanders, including the officers, were I Troop, John Robinson, Troop Sergeant, Chris Jennison, Bill Hunter, and Joe Van Droffler. In J Troop, ELA Tonner, Pancho Tonner, Troop Sergeant, Arch Foxley, John Jewell, Jim Phillips, Corporal, and in L Troop, Ray Woofer Neal, Troop Sergeant Clem Dwyer, Fred Roberts, promoted to Sergeant on arrival in country.
Footnote: Fred was a true Vietnam veteran, promoted sergeant on arrival in Vietnam to replace Johnny Twang Burling. Fred served on in the regiment, mainly in the freefall and diving fields, but then slipped away to work as a diving supervisor on oil rigs in the north. A very capable soldier and leader.
And Corporals Bill Harris,
Footnote: A Borneo 1 Squadron and 2 Tour Vietnam veteran, he left the unit on RTA. A very good soldier.
Andy Waring,
Footnote: A 2 Tour 1 RAR veteran. A very good soldier.
Ian Baggs of Styles, promoted to Sergeant in country, and Roger Arnold.
Footnote: Roger was a 2 Tour 3 Squadron Vietnam veteran who was treated poorly by the command structure in 3 Squadron and later left the regiment. Word had it he wound up working in a coal mine in Bulli, New South Wales. He was a very good soldier.
The helipad between J and I troops was named NADZAB after the drop zone in the Markham Valley, New Guinea in World War II, and returning patrols usually dropped off there. The process on NADZAB was weapons cleared into a test fire pit.
Footnote: A 40-gallon drum buried in the ground full of sand. To clear a weapon, you're supposed to take the magazine off, cock it, and remove the round and let it go forward. Then you take your safety catch off, fire the action, put your safety catch on, put your magazine back on. One time a bloke actually emptied a full magazine on auto into the pit. Why? Another example of smart arsery, I suppose.
I can still name that bloke too. Um, the process on NADZAB was weapons cleared in the test fire pit, weapons cleared and checked, and then walked down the hill to the lines, which was also a large. There was also a large 6-seat dunny here on the pad, which provided a great place to pass on gossip and tell tales. When the US Army 155s and 175s were firing, all seated got a severe blast of air up their nether regions. Each troop generally stuck to it themselves in their own lines, with the exceptions of the mess, movie theatre and Diggers Boozer. There was so much work to do in repairing the lines J Troop decided they needed a Burma Thai railway or boardwalk. Uh, L Troop L Troop had the task of revetting each tent in corrugated iron, as did I Troop. We worked like navvies in those lines, making a, a vast difference to that which had been left to us. Our true commander also decided we needed a mortar bunker dug in our lines. We toiled away at this pit for weeks, and then as the wet season approached, we were not surprised that it had filled up with water overnight. Problem was, it hadn't rained yet. We had hit the spring of some sort, and that the amount of bailing had an effect, so the bunker project was abandoned. A few of us would swim in it daily, but that was it for the much vaunted bunker. Each morning at Odark 100, Wolf and Neil would march down the path calling out, "Okay, let's have you." We would all assemble outside our hutchies for our daily dose of anti-malarials. Woofer ensured each man swallowed both pills with a mouthful of water before moving on to the next man. It must have worked because no one got malaria in the 12 months I was there. In the bush, the patrol 2IC would ensure we all had enough pills for the patrol's duration and ensure we took them every morning. Eventually, we discovered that we had a troop of NZSAS living off to one side of our camp, ostensibly under the command of our OC, for all the bushwork. They built themselves a pa, a traditional Maori meeting place, to which I was never fortunately enough to get an invite. The temperature in the camp between them and us was a bit out of order. Many incidents occurred in the Diggers Boozer, which could have turned ugly. I remember Big Sam Petty going off on the bar one day at some slight by Nick McKelvey. And Big Sam, he was a giant, threatened Nick with drastic action. Nick raced down to his hoochie in I Troop and grabbed his AR heavy barrel with a full 30 round magazine and walked back up to the boozer and said, "Right, you big bastard, I'm going to blow your fucking head off." He had one up the spout with a safety catch off, and Mooker Stanton saved the day by calmly reaching over to take the rifle off Nick. You could have heard a pin drop. Once they had both woken up to themselves and apologised, everything went back to normal. It was like the Wild West. Nothing was ever said about this incident after that. We met some great blokes amongst our Kiwis, some not so great. Roger Marker, Buzz Attini, Bill Lillycrap, Kevin Heroini, Mick Cocker were the pick of the bunch, in my view. Some of them were Borneo veterans who thought they knew everything about jungle warfare, but one of their sergeants, Fred Bad News Barclay, came out with us on our first patrol, and it wasn't a happy experience. Quite early in the tour, a New Zealand SAS Patrol Commander, Sergeant Graham Campbell, was KIA. This knocked the squadron around considerably, but with SAS resilience, we soon got on with it. RIP Graham. The Kiwis had many field drills which were different to ours, which caused some frisson, and the mood in the boozer was always fraught. We were all 21 and ratbags, while the Kiwis seemed to see themselves as superior. They did not like coming under the command of Reg Beasley, who, ironically, never put any of them in for a gong at the end of the tour. This rankled deeply to this day. End of chapter.
And that was chapter 16 from Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone, as read by the author. Okay, so lots of fun and games and lots of names. Lots of personalities there at Nui Dat.
Yeah, you can reconcile that.
Yeah, there's a yeah, I always get the feeling that the energy at Nui Dat translated to the energy on Anzac Day when you'd always standing around outside the RSL. Everyone would be transported back to being 21 years old and
Oh,
kayaking each other in the lines, and
yeah.
sounds like it was a little bit out of order at times.
Uh, it's got a lot of good pictures in that chapter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we can start by talking about that. Yeah, some good pictures. And I'll if you're listening and you have a copy of the book, obviously, then these are on pages 128 through to 131. And if you're watching on YouTube, then I'll insert the pictures as we talk about them. So yeah, so let's have a look at these pictures. So we've got some they look some fairly rudimentary living quarters that you've got here,
Yeah,
tin
to
sheds and
say the
things.
least.
So yeah, so 1601. So you've got "I live here" uh the subheading in
Yeah,
on that one. So was this so that was the area that you taken a photo and sent it home to your parents to say,
yeah, that was our three-man hutchie. You see the revetment, um, corrugated iron around the outside,
yeah, yeah,
waiting to be mortared.
right. And did that do
Um,
did that do much? I mean, obviously it's better than canvas, but
revetment was important because they were blast walls, basically. They were full of sand and sandbags.
right.
So if there was a blast from a mortar round or an artillery round or whatever, it went off 10 yards outside, you wouldn't get killed by it.
Did you ever experience that in your time there?
No,
Was
no, we didn't.
but
We
other
had
other groups did.
we did get mortared once, but I troop um, around hit the top of the bamboo above one of the tents, and Jock Lorimer was badly wounded. He got a lump of shrapnel in his chest.
Right.
Very lucky that he didn't die.
Hmm.
Um, but that was a stand to situation where, in the middle of the afternoon, all of a sudden, Kawumpa,
Hmm.
and people were running around everywhere looking for the helmets and somewhere to hide.
And
You
this
can
is
see
in
some of the photos there.
yeah,
The wet season photos, the track running
yeah,
a banker,
yeah.
um, the mess and the two messes, and then Knockers Opera House in the bottom of that 1607.
Yeah, I'll just get onto that page. Yeah. So lots of yeah, so
And
lots
the signals balloon, which was a disaster.
what do you mean it was a disaster?
Well, they put it up with a radio strapped to it, and it either came down or it didn't work, one or the other.
Right. Wh-
And that's one of the only photographs taken of me down the bottom of that page.
yeah. Getting ready for a patrol. Let's hold that up there. Let's see that.
That's it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so before you'd gone out on patrol, did you sort of feel as though this was a bit of a doddle? Bit of fun now? You're up there?
Oh yeah, you started started to get through your cortex to say, oh, hang on, this is going to be serious in a minute.
Yeah.
And once you're down the range, doing your final range practice and some of your patrol drills with live rounds, you knew. And next day you went down to the pad, went to the helicopter briefing, and then you boarded the choppers, and then you went. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, and then lots of, as I said, lots of really major personalities that you met
yeah.
along here. Um, and
They're
that,
memorable because I remember every one of them, every one of those blokes.
right.
Um, you can't walk up to me on Anzac Day and say, "Oh, I was with you in 3 Squadron," when you weren't, because I know that.
Yeah,
Um, just the way it was.
right. Right, right. And then some blokes who stuck around for a bit and some who were only there for a little while and some who served with you for decades.
Well, it's an important thing to serve on, but more important to want to be there. If you don't want to be there, you get out.
Right.
At the end of the day, that was it.
Yeah, yeah. And then that story of the I mean, so the tension between the Australian SAS and the New Zealand SAS is an interesting
Yeah, a
little
bit of
aside.
tension. Bit of tension.
I mean, I
They
suppose
kept singing, they kept singing this same song all the time. 10 guitars.
right.
And God, drove us mad. But we just kept talking, and they kept playing, and all of a sudden one day Roger Marker belted Billy Campbell over the head with the guitar. And he's standing there in the boozer with the strings hanging down the side of his face and continued to drink on. Oh, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's always going to be tension between Australians and New Zealanders wherever you go. But when you get a bunch uh, of blokes in a war zone, then
Yeah.
the tension's going to go up, and we're going to hear more about the Kiwis in future chapters. But then that Nick McKelvey incident, sticking a rifle up the bloke's nose.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it could have gone
there's also a
south.
map. There's a map on page
Yeah,
130 of
yeah, and we'll have a look at the
book of
map.
accounts.
Um, and so yeah, so we've got we've got a map that appears there that we've taken off Wikipedia just to give everyone a sense of what's happening in the area that we're talking about, and you can see Vung Tau there and uh, Long Tan, Nui Dat, all the different kinds of areas around that province. And that'll be useful going forward because if anyone's interested in knowing about your movements and how you were getting around and where you were in patrol,
Yeah.
that's a useful one there too. And so, and yeah, and it won't take us very long to get into your first patrols. In fact, that's the next chapter.
No, it's about a week, I think.
Right. So
Um,
a week from being in Perth to
yeah, a week from
getting
being
in
in Perth
into your first patrol.
into the boondocks.
Wow. So, yeah, exciting stuff. Okay, so that's all the time we have this week for Never Die Wondering. Join us next week for the next installment and our exploration of Mick Malone's career as we get to the 17th chapter of the book itself, titled First Patrols. If you have a copy of Two Ranks, read along with us. I've been Toby Malone, and thank you to Mick Malone for valiantly joining me on this journey. This has been Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words. For links to purchase your own copies of Mick's books, visit the show notes or mickmalone.com.au. This podcast is produced by Toby Malone, Joe Malone and Mick Malone and engineered by Toby Malone. Theme music is The Happy Wanderer, the official SAS march, as reimagined by Cormac Malone and Meg Logue Malone. Yes, this is a family affair. This is a GM production in association with Imprimatur Books.